Ethan, you're terminated. Brenda Wallace, the director of HR, slid a cold severance agreement across the table. In her early 30s and impeccably made up, her tone was even colder than the black and white text on the page. I was stunned. 35 years old. I'd given 8 years of my life to this company, grinding away diligently. If I wasn't a superstar, I was at least loyal. How could it suddenly? Why? I heard my own voice, dry and raspy. Brenda leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, a faint, contemptuous smile on her lips. Why? Ethan, don't you know? Look at you. 35 and still in a junior-level specialist role. How many promotion opportunities has the company offered you over the years? You never went for them. The younger folks are here grinding until midnight. What are you doing? You're clocking out at 5 on the dot to go home and make dinner. Your colleagues spend their weekends upskilling, improving themselves. And you? You're at the park with your wife and kid. She paused, then delivered the final, heartless blow. This company doesn't carry dead weight, and it certainly doesn't subsidize parasites with no ambition. Your attitude, this contentment with the status quo, it's out of sync with the company's pace. Parasite. The word stabbed into my heart like a red-hot needle. What could I say? I silently signed the papers. Clutching a cardboard box filled with 8 years of my professional life, I walked out of the building I once knew so well, now a place of utter alienation, under the varied gazes of my colleagues, some pitying, some gloating. I drove home in a daze to our rented 650-square-foot 2-bedroom apartment. My wife, Olivia, our daughter, and I had lived here for nearly a decade. I pushed the door open, expecting my wife's warm smile and my daughter's hug. Instead, I was met with a scene I will never forget. Standing in the living room were 4 or 5 imposing men in black suits and sunglasses, their presence radiating an intense, professional severity. These are not ordinary people, and in the center of them stood my wife, Olivia. She was different. She was no longer the homemaker in cotton pajamas and an apron, her hair casually tied up. She was wearing a bespoke, black designer power suit, her long hair elegantly coiffed, revealing the graceful line of her neck. Her makeup was subtle but sharp, her expression calm and piercing. Her red lips were pressed into a firm line, and she radiated a powerful aura I had never seen before, the unmistakable air of someone in charge. She was holding a file, speaking to one of the bodyguard types in a tone that brooked no argument, using professional jargon I couldn't begin to comprehend. The A-round financing for this acquisition needs to be in our account within 3 days. Tell Wall Street my patience is limited. And for tomorrow's board meeting, have the legal team prepare the equity transfer agreement. I don't want any surprises. Only after she finished did she notice me at the door. Her sharp gaze landed on me for a second, then softened into a flicker of the tenderness I knew. But the powerful aura didn't diminish in the slightest. Honey, you're home. She walked toward me, the bodyguards automatically parting to create a path. She reached for the box in my hands, but I instinctively flinched away. Liv, what? What is going on? I stared at her, then at the men in black, my mind a complete fog. Olivia paused for a moment, as if searching for the right words. Finally, she sighed softly, a hint of apology in her eyes. I'm sorry, Ethan. There are some things I've kept from you for the past 10 years. She looked up at me and said, calmly and deliberately, I, Olivia Hayes, am the sole heir to Helios Capital. And starting tomorrow, I will officially take over as the new president and CEO of the company we just fully acquired. Apex Innovations. Apex Innovations. The company that had just laid me off. I don't remember how I got through that night. My brain felt like a computer that had crashed after a virus attack, stuck in a loop between 2 conflicting pieces of information. I've been fired, and my wife is the CEO. At a subtle nod from Olivia, the black-suited bodyguards slipped out of the apartment and vanished down the hall as if they had never been there. The living room, suddenly vast, held only the 2 of us. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. She was still my wife, Olivia, but she wasn't. The scent of an expensive perfume had replaced the familiar smell of cooking oil. The calm authority in her eyes made me feel a sense of distance and unfamiliarity I had never known. So, for the last 10 years, you've been. I started my voice hoarse. I've been handling my family's investment portfolio remotely from home, she answered concisely, as if delivering a project update. My father's health has been poor, and I effectively took over all of Helios Capital 3 years ago. Acquiring Apex was a unanimous decision by the board. Why? Why didn't you tell me? I looked at her, my heart a chaotic mix of shock and confusion, but mostly the sting of being deceived. I was afraid it would change our life, she said, stepping closer to me. She reached out and touched my face. Her palm was still warm, but the expensive fabric of her suit felt like a cold barrier between us. I loved the life we had. It was simple, quiet. I didn't want the family disputes and the backstabbing of the business world to interfere. I just wanted to be your wife and Lily's mom. Her eyes were sincere, but a profound sense of panic washed over me. All this time, the identity I was so proud of, the head of the household who could provide for his wife and daughter, was nothing but a joke. The salary I worked so hard to earn every month was probably less than the cost of the suit she was wearing. My idea of ambition was likely, in her eyes, as quaint as our daughter getting a gold star in kindergarten. Worthy of encouragement, but ultimately insignificant. That night, we slept in separate rooms. For the first time in our marriage. I lay in the bed we had shared for 10 years, the scent of her shampoo lingering on the pillow, and tossed and turned all night. She was in the study next door. I could hear her on a video conference call, speaking fluent English, her words flying by in a stream of concepts I didn't understand. Market cap, leverage, put options. It felt like there was an invisible wall between us. The next morning when I woke up, she was gone. On the kitchen table was a sandwich she had made and a glass of warm milk, with a note tucked underneath in her familiar, elegant handwriting. Honey, heat this up before you eat. I'll be home early tonight. Love you. I stared at the note, but I felt no warmth, only a biting irony. A woman about to take control of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, on her very first day, was still acting like a typical housewife, making breakfast for her newly unemployed husband. The whole scene felt surreal. I turned on the TV to CNBC. A live broadcast was in progress. Sources confirm that Helios Capital completed its full acquisition of Apex Innovations yesterday. At 9 a.m. this morning, Helios will install its new CEO, who is expected to arrive at the Apex headquarters. The identity of this mysterious new executive will determine the future of Apex's thousands of employees. On the screen, the entrance to the Apex Innovations building was swarmed with reporters. At 9 o'clock sharp, a black Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb. The door opened, and a foot in a black high-heeled shoe emerged first. Then my wife, Olivia Hayes, stepped out into a sea of flashing cameras. She wore sunglasses, her expression unreadable. Flanked by a team of bodyguards, she walked like a queen into the very building that had kicked me to the curb just a day before. In that moment, I understood with chilling clarity. The small, warm world we had built, the thing we called home, was gone for good. I didn't go to the office. I watched my wife's coronation from our tiny rented apartment, an outsider looking in through a television screen. The founder of Apex Innovations, a man nearing 60 whom I had once revered like a god, now stood respectfully beside Olivia, like a butler. Olivia walked to the hastily assembled podium, took off her sunglasses, and revealed the face I knew so intimately, now radiating an immense authority. She wasted no time on pleasantries. My name is Olivia Hayes, and as of today, I am the president and CEO of Apex Innovations. Her voice, amplified by the microphone, filled the press hall and echoed in my small living room. It was calm, clear, and carried an unshakable power. I know many of you are curious, perhaps even fearful. That's fine. You only need to know 3 things. She held up 3 fingers. First, as of today, Apex Innovations is under the management of Helios Capital. Everything that came before is reset to 0. All strategies, personnel, and finances will be reevaluated by me and my team. Second, I'm not here to be a savior. I am here to create value. Any department, project, or individual that cannot create value for this company will be cut without hesitation. Third, she paused, her gaze sweeping over the silent, stunned faces of the company's senior management. My office is on the top floor. My door is always open. However, I expect the people who walk through it to bring me solutions, not problems. Because people who only bring up problems are, themselves, the company's biggest problem. With a slight nod, she turned and walked away, leaving a dead silence and 100 horrified faces in her wake. The live broadcast ended, but the shockwave from her speech was just beginning to hit. In every corner of the company, Olivia's name was on everyone's lips. She was the new Devil Wears Prada, a moniker whispered with a mix of fear and awe. Legends about her were already forming. Some said she was a Wall Street butcher. Others claimed she was the heir to a mysterious dynasty. But no one could connect this decisive, formidable CEO with me, the quiet, recently fired nice guy, Ethan Carter. I, in turn, had become the most awkward person associated with the company. My phone was blowing up with a flood of texts from former colleagues. Holy crap. Ethan, your wife is a total badass. Dude, You were playing the long game. You were the secret prince of this company all along. Ethan, my man, can you put in a good word with your wife? See if she can move me over to marketing? Reading the messages, I just felt sick. Secret prince? I was just a parasite who had been swept out the door. Just then, my phone rang. It was my former department head, Rick Miller, the same man who had lorded his authority over me yesterday, now cooing into the phone like a lapdog. Ethan, my man. Wow, what a crazy situation, huh? A huge misunderstanding. Yesterday, I was just putting on a show for Brenda. I've always said you were the best, Ethan. Dependable, steady. Firing you broke my heart. It really did. Listen, can you talk to Olivia? I mean, Mrs. Hayes, your wife. Tell her that I, Rick Miller, am as loyal as they come. Before I could respond, a woman's voice, icy and familiar, cut in on his end of the line. Mr. Miller, is it? It was Olivia. She was right there with him. Rick's voice instantly turned to a panicked stammer. And Mrs. Hayes, how did you? I've just reviewed your personnel file and your KPIs for the last 3 years. Olivia's voice came through the phone, sharp and metallic. As a department head, your team has ranked last in performance for 3 consecutive years. The average employee tenure under your management is less than 18 months. And you, personally, spend over 40% of your work hours engaged in office politics and unproductive socializing. Rick sounded like he was about to cry. My conclusion, Olivia continued, giving him no room for excuses, is that you and the sycophants you've promoted are no longer a fit for this company. You could go to HR now and process your termination. Oh, and by the way, the director of HR, Brenda Wallace, was dismissed half an hour ago. Click. The line went dead. I stood there holding my phone, my palm cold and clammy. She, my wife on the day after I was fired, had avenged me in the most direct and ruthless way possible. But I felt no satisfaction, not a single shred of it. All I felt was a chill that went straight to my bones. Because I knew she hadn't done it for me. She was just cleaning house, getting rid of what she considered to be trash. Just like Brenda had done to me yesterday. Some well-connected people had already figured out my relationship with Olivia. Their gazes were now filled with a mixture of awe and deference. They would carefully probe for information about the new CEO's preferences, hoping to find a shortcut to the center of power through me. Many others, however, saw me as a kept husband who got dumped. They pointed and whispered behind my back, saying I was never good enough for her, that it was only a matter of time before I was kicked to the curb for good. I didn't go back to the office. I wandered the streets of Chicago like a phantom, with nowhere to go and nothing to do. For the first time, I realized that without the identity of Apex Innovations employee, Ethan Carter was a nobody in this sprawling city. That evening, I got a call from my only real friend at the company, David Shun. Ethan, you have to see the company's internal portal. All hell has broken loose. David's voice was laced with panic. I opened my phone and navigated to the familiar portal. A pinned post glowed at the top, its title in a blood-red font. Company-wide announcement regarding organizational restructuring and staff adjustments. Posted by Office of the CEO. I clicked on it. The announcement was brutally clinical. It stated simply that to improve operational efficiency and optimize labor costs, the board had decided to initiate structural layoffs. The projected reduction in workforce was 50%. 50%. That meant that of the more than 1,000 employees, half would lose their jobs within the next month. The portal exploded. Are you insane? Laying off half the company? Is she trying to bankrupt us? This is unbelievable. We kill ourselves working late every night for these projects, and now they just cut us loose. Is this new CEO trying to destroy Apex? We have to band together. We'll protest. We'll go to the Department of Labor. I stared at the furious, desperate comments, my hands and feet turning to ice. I could vividly imagine how many middle-aged men, just like me, would have the foundations of their lives crumble overnight because of this directive. How many families would be plunged into crisis? And the person who made this decision was my wife. The woman who used to leave a light on and a bowl of warm soup for me when I came home late from work. The woman who would spend weekends with me, teaching our daughter how to draw and fly a kite. Suddenly, I felt as though I had never really known her at all. That night, Olivia came home very late. I hadn't gone to bed. I was sitting on the living room sofa in the dark, waiting. Only the cool moonlight spilled across the floor. The sound of a key turning in the lock broke the silence. The door opened. She walked in, without her bodyguards this time. She looked exhausted. Kicking off her heels by the door, she let her expensive Birkin bag fall onto the sofa and then collapsed into the cushions herself. She didn't seem to see me in the darkness. She just closed her eyes and let out a long, deep sigh. At the office, she was the decisive queen. But back in this small, shabby apartment, it was as if she had finally shed her armor, becoming just an ordinary, tired woman. Why did you do it? I asked. My voice sounded jarring in the silent night. She jumped, her eyes flying open, and saw me. You're still awake? I'm asking you. Why are you laying off half the company? I repeated, my tone carrying an accusatory edge I hadn't intended. She was silent for a moment, seemingly shifting from her CEO persona back to Ethan's wife. It's the most optimal solution, she said, sitting up straight, her voice regaining its professional calm. Apex's organizational structure is bloated. There's too much redundancy and inefficiency. More than half the employees are doing repetitive, low-output work. Cutting them will cause short-term pain, but it's necessary for the company's long-term health. The most optimal solution? I couldn't help but sneer. What you call labor costs and redundancy are living, breathing people. They're families. Have you ever stopped to think about how they're going to survive after this? I have, she replied, catching me off guard. That's why the severance package I'm offering is N+3, far above the industry standard. That money is enough to support them for over half a year while they find a new job. So you think money solves everything, is that it? My voice was rising without me realizing it. She looked at me, her brow furrowed. Ethan, this isn't about money. It's about business. Survival of the fittest. It's brutal, but it's fair. Fair. I stood up, looking down at her. You want to talk to me about fair? You, who were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, who could decide the fate of hundreds of people with a single word. You want to talk about fairness with people like us, who work our asses off just to earn a salary and support our families. It was the first time in our 10 years of marriage I had ever spoken to her with such a harsh tone. Her face turned pale, and the coolness returned. So in your eyes, everything I have today is just because I was born with a silver spoon. Is that it? She looked at me, a flicker of disappointment and hurt in her eyes. The years of discipline, study, and hard work I put in, you just see all of that as something I was handed? That's not what I meant. I faltered. Then what did you mean? She stood up, her powerful presence flooding the room. The CEO was back. Are you suggesting I should sacrifice the company's interests, sacrifice the futures of the employees who actually work hard, all for the sake of a few mediocre, unambitious people? Ethan, that isn't kindness. That's foolishness. She had walked into my small home, the one I had built with love and warmth, like a conquering queen. And with her cold, rational business logic, she had shattered it all to pieces. The invisible wall between us was now real, solid, and impossibly high. That argument ended with no resolution. For the next few days, Olivia and I were in a cold war. She left early and came home late, consumed by her aggressive corporate reforms. I pretended to go out job hunting every day, but was actually just wandering through the city's parks and neighborhoods, a ghost with no purpose. We lived under the same roof, but we were like two strangers who knew each other too well. Our only communication was a few perfunctory exchanges at the dinner table. How are the interviews today? Fine. Busy at the office. Very. Then a long, heavy silence. Our daughter, Lily, seemed to sense the tension in the house. She grew quiet and cautious, no longer her usual bubbly self. One evening, Olivia came home with a file and placed it in front of me. What's this? I asked. Apex Innovations has created a new department, Employee Culture and Engagement, she said calmly. I want you to run it. I stared at her, stunned. What do you mean? The department's main responsibilities will be organizing team-building events, planning employee activities, listening to staff concerns. Things you're good at, she explained. There are no KPIs, the workload is light, and the salary. We'll start you at $1 million a year. What do you think? I looked at her, an unidentifiable feeling churning in my gut. Was it pity? Charity? Or compensation? She fires me from the company, only to invite me back in a different capacity, handing me a cushy, high-paying job where I could be kept like a pet, living at the mercy of her whims. A surge of humiliation and anger rushed to my head. Olivia, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, could you please stop managing my life like you're talking to one of your subordinates? She looked taken aback. I'm not. I just thought it was a good option for you. A good option? I laughed, a bitter, self-mocking sound. Sure. Great pay, easy work, close to home. And I get to see my wife, the high and mighty CEO, every day, right? Ethan, why do you have to see it that way? Her voice was tinged with anger now. I'm just trying to help you. I can't stand seeing you so dejected. Help me. I stood up, looking her directly in the eye. You really think this is helping me? Olivia, do you have any idea what it's like out there? I had an interview today at a small firm, and when the HR manager found out about us, she said to my face, Mr. Carter, why are you even looking for a job? With a wife as successful as yours, you could just stay home and count her money. Do you have any idea how they look at me? I didn't have to finish. She knew. Pity, contempt, ridicule. I'm a man. I have my pride, I said, enunciating every word. I don't need your charity. I won't take the job. It was the first time I had ever explicitly refused her. A flash of shock crossed her face, quickly replaced by a cold disappointment. Fine, she nodded, retracting the file. I understand. It seems I overestimated your maturity, Ethan. She turned and walked into the study, closing the door behind her. I was left alone in the empty living room, feeling as if all the strength had been drained from my body. I had defended my pathetic pride, but in doing so, I had also personally severed the last thread of warmth between us. The layoff storm at Apex hit faster and harder than anyone had imagined. Every day, the internal Slack channels were a torrent of negativity. People were crying, cursing, or selling off their office equipment at a discount. A palpable sense of dread hung over the entire company, like it was a sinking ship. Then, I got the call from David Shun. Ethan, let's get a drink. His voice was rough and exhausted. We met at a local dive bar. In just a few days, David looked like he had aged 10 years. His hair was greasy, his face stubbled, and his eyes were sunken. He was my best friend at the company. We had started on the same day, pulled all-nighters together, and gotten chewed out by the same bosses. On the day I was fired, he was the only one who dared to walk over, clap me on the shoulder, and say, "Take care." The second wave of layoffs was announced this afternoon, he said, downing a large gulp of beer, his eyes bloodshot. And you? My stomach tightened. He gave a grim smile. I'm on the list. I didn't know what to say. In the face of such a brutal reality, any words of comfort felt hollow and pathetic. Honestly, I saw it coming, David said, taking another swig. I'm like you, man. No huge ambitions. Just wanted to work a steady job until retirement. But in this world, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. Guys like us, we were bound to be weeded out eventually. He looked at me, his expression complicated. Ethan, I know this. This isn't your fault. Your wife, Mrs. Hayes, she's running a business. We were in her way, so we had to go. Logically, I get it. But in my heart, I just can't accept it. My dad just had heart surgery last month. My son starts middle school next year, and my wife. She's been out of work for a few years. My whole family depends on my paycheck. As he spoke, the 40-year-old man in front of me started to cry. Watching him, I felt a pain as sharp as a knife twisting in my gut. What could I do? Beg Olivia? Ask her to spare David for my sake? But then what? There were 1,000 other Davids at the company. Could I ask her to keep all of them? In her eyes, wouldn't that just be the foolish kindness she had talked about? I stayed with David and drank a lot that night. On the way to his house, he threw up all over the sidewalk, mumbling over and over why. What did I do wrong? I got home close to midnight. Olivia was still up. She was sitting on the living room sofa with her laptop, apparently waiting for me. She smelled the alcohol on me and frowned. You've been drinking? I ignored her and walked right up to her. David Chun was laid off, I said, getting straight to the point. She looked up, her gaze calm. I know. His name was on the second list. He's my best friend. I know. His family's in a really tough spot. I know that too. She closed her laptop and looked at me. Ethan, what are you trying to say? I want to ask you, I said, staring at her beautiful, almost unreal face, feeling for the first time a deep, genuine disgust. When you make these decisions, is your heart made of stone? They aren't just numbers on your spreadsheet. They are living, breathing human beings with families, parents, and children. You are destroying their lives. My voice trembled with emotion. My accusation was a rock thrown into an already turbulent lake, unleashing a tidal wave. The color drained from Olivia's face. Her eyes, usually so calm and controlled, now blazed with a furious fire. I'm destroying their lives? She shot back, her voice sharp with anger. How dare you say that to me? Do you think I want to be the villain? Do you think it feels good to watch employees leave the office in tears? Then why are you still doing it? I yelled. Because it's my responsibility, she countered, her intensity matching mine. I answered to the board of Helios Capital, to thousands of shareholders. I inherited a company that was a complete mess, rotten from the inside out. If I don't reform it, if I don't cut the dead weight, Apex Innovations will go bankrupt from a broken cash flow chain in less than 3 months. And it won't be half the employees getting laid off. It will be everyone. Do you understand that? Understand? I laughed bitterly. No, I don't understand. I don't understand your cold capitalist logic of cutting off a limb to save the body. I don't understand how short-term pain leads to a better future. All I know is that my friend, the man I work alongside for 8 years, is now unemployed because of you. He has aging parents and a young son, and right now he feels like dying. So what? She took a step closer, her eyes as cold as daggers. So I should keep an inefficient, unproductive employee on the payroll for the sake of your friendship and drag the entire company down with him? Ethan, can you please grow up? This isn't a game. I'm not mature. I was completely enraged. Right in your eyes. Nothing I do is mature. If I'm content with my life, I'm unambitious. If I stand up for a friend, I'm sentimental and weak. In your world, does maturity only mean cold, hard profits and numbers? Are human decency and loyalty worthless? Decency? Loyalty? She laughed, but the sound was full of exhaustion and sorrow. Ethan, you're so naive. The marketplace is a battlefield. You show compassion, and your competitor puts a gun to your head. If I'm not ruthless today, then tomorrow, it'll be our family on the ground crying. Don't you dare talk about our family. I cut her off, spitting out words I instantly regretted. From the moment you walked into this house in that power suit like a queen, we stopped being a family. The words hung in the air, and the world fell silent. She stared at me, the anger in her eyes slowly dissolving into shock, then into a deep, unspeakable sadness. It was the look of someone whose heart had just been pierced by the person they held closest. She didn't say another word, just gave me one last, long look. Then she turned, picked up her bag from the sofa, and walked out of the house. The door clicked shut behind her. No yelling, no slamming. Just a dead, suffocating silence. I collapsed onto the sofa, staring at the closed door, my insides hollowed out. I knew I had gone too far, and I knew that some things, once broken, could never be put back together. Olivia never came back. The next day, she sent an assistant, a sharp-looking young woman who regarded me with unconcealed disdain, as if I were a fool who had stumbled into a fortune and then stupidly thrown it away. I said nothing, just watched silently as they packed up everything that belonged to Olivia, erasing her presence from our home piece by piece. Finally, the assistant handed me a debit card and a key. Mrs. Hayes said this card has $10 million on it for your living expenses. The key is to the penthouse at the Elysian Tower. She has moved there. She said, you are welcome to move in any time. The Elysian Tower. I knew the place. It was the most exclusive luxury high-rise in the city, home only to the ultra-wealthy. I'd heard the monthly HOA fees alone cost more than a mortgage. I stared at the card and the key, the irony burning a hole in my chest. She was trying to buy off our 10-year marriage with $10 million. Trying to install me, the failure in her eyes, in a gilded cage. Give them back to her, I told the assistant. And tell her that I'm not so pathetic that I need to live off my ex-wife's money. I used the words ex-wife. The assistant's expression flickered, but she took the items back and left. From that day on, we were officially separated. She lived in her palace in the sky, overlooking the entire city. I remained in our small, worn-out home, a museum of our shared memories. Without her, the apartment felt cavernously empty. I started frantically applying for jobs, but reality was harsher than I had imagined. 35 years old, no specialized in-demand skills, and saddled with the awkward title of the CEO's ex-husband. No respectable company would touch me. The few small businesses that offered me a chance paid a pitifully low salary. For the first time, I felt the full, crushing weight of the world's indifference and the helplessness of a man in my position. Meanwhile, rumors about Olivia and me spread like wildfire. Some said I'd been kicked to the curb, a cast-off from a wealthy family. Others claimed I was shamelessly clinging to her, trying to get a piece of her fortune. Some even whispered that I had cheated on her, causing the split. The same people who had once tried to curry favor with me now looked at me like I was a joke. I had become the city's biggest laughingstock. I spent my days in a fog. I pretend to go job hunting, but would end up sitting on a park bench all day. At night, I'd return to the empty apartment and drink myself numb. I even started to miss the old days. I missed the old me, mediocre, maybe, but stable. I missed the old Olivia, a nag sometimes, but gentle. It seemed I had well and truly screwed everything up. The gossip about being a kept man hurt more than being unemployed. The labels, freeloader, cast-off husband, useless bum, stuck to me like tar. I could feel the stares on my back when I walked down the street. The cashier at the corner store would offer her condolences. Chin up, Ethan. Every man has his rough patches. Even my daughter, Lily, was being taunted at preschool. Your daddy doesn't have a job. Your mommy takes care of him. She came home crying and asked me, Daddy, is it true? In that moment, I felt my heart tear open. I couldn't go on like this. For my own sake, and more importantly, for my daughter's. I had to get back on my feet. But what could I do? The path back to a corporate career seemed permanently blocked. One night, Drunk and despairing, I stumbled home. Staring at the mess around me and the disheveled stranger in the mirror, I was overcome by a wave of grief and rage. I grabbed an empty bottle and hurled it at the dusty, handmade bookshelf in the corner. With a loud crack, the wood split, revealing the sturdy mortise and tenon joint I had crafted years ago. Seeing that familiar joinery, a flicker of an idea ignited in my mind. Woodworking. It had been my passion since I was a kid. My grandfather was a master carpenter, and I grew up loving the smell of sawdust and the magic of turning a plain block of wood into something warm and useful. Over the years, chasing a career and building a life, I had let that passion gather dust in a corner of my soul. Maybe I could pick it up again. The thought, once it took root, grew like a wild vine, wrapping itself around my heart. With woodworking, I didn't have to please anyone or answer to anybody. It was just me and a piece of wood, a conversation between my hands and my heart. The next day, I used the last of my savings to rent a derelict warehouse on the outskirts of the city. I scoured flea markets for a basic set of tools. Then, I locked myself away in a world that smelled of sawdust and varnish. I started by making a new little desk for Lily. I chose a piece of North American white oak. I remembered Olivia once saying she loved its warm texture and clean grain. I plain cut, sanded, and chiseled. The moment my hands felt the warm, solid texture of the wood again, the moment my lungs filled with the uniquely comforting scent of sawdust, I felt the lost, broken parts of myself slowly beginning to heal. I stopped thinking about the gossip, about the dead-end job search, about the woman I both loved and resented. My world shrank to me and this piece of wood. A week later, a beautiful little desk was finished. It didn't have a single nail. Every piece was joined with traditional mortise and tenon. I had rounded all the corners and finished it with a non-toxic, natural oil. I brought it home. When Lily saw it, her eyes lit up. "Daddy, did you make this? It's so pretty." She threw her arms around my neck and gave me a huge kiss. In that moment, looking at my daughter's smiling face, the scent of sawdust on my hands, I felt it, the long-lost, simple, and solid dignity of a man. My workshop became my sanctuary, the place of my rebirth. I lost myself in the joy of creation. I built a rocking horse for Lily out of walnut. I made a comfortable rocking chair for myself from cherry wood. I even carved a small figurine of Olivia from a scrap of camphor wood. As I carved, my feelings were a complex mix of nostalgia and resentment, but mostly it was a quiet attempt to make peace with the past. On a whim, I took a few photos of my work and posted them on Instagram, an account I hadn't touched in years, with the simple handle Carter's Craft. It was a small community of artisans and craft lovers. I didn't expect any reaction. It was just a way to document my new life. A few days later, to my surprise, my post went viral. "Wow, that mortise and tenon joinery is legit. Dude, is that skill inherited? You rarely see pure hand craftsmanship like this anymore. I'm in love with the sheen from that oil finish. Where can I get some? At Carter's Craft, do you take commissions? I'd love to order a desk." Reading the comments and direct messages, I felt a kind of validation I had never experienced before. It was completely different from getting a bonus or praise from a boss. This was a direct affirmation of my own intrinsic value. I cautiously accepted my first order. It was from a young mother in my neighborhood who wanted a desk for her child, just like the one I made for Lily. We met at a coffee shop. When she saw me, she was surprised. "Mr. Carter? So you're Carter's Craft. I've heard about you, but I had no idea you had this talent." I gave a wry smile, saying nothing. What she had likely heard were the rumors of the cast-off husband. But this time, I didn't feel ashamed. I sat up straight and spoke to her professionally about wood choices, design dimensions, and the intricacies of the joinery. In that moment, I wasn't someone's husband or ex-husband. I was a craftsman. I was Ethan Carter. I spent a full week pouring my heart into that desk. When I delivered it, the mother and her child were absolutely thrilled. She paid me $5,000. Holding the cash, my hands trembled slightly. It was less than my old monthly salary, but the sense of satisfaction and accomplishment it gave me was immeasurable. This was the first money I had earned honorably with my own two hands. My little business started to grow slowly from there, built entirely on word of mouth. More and more people sought me out for custom furniture. There was an old professor who loved traditional design, a young minimalist architect, and people who simply appreciated the warmth of handmade wooden objects. My warehouse transformed from a one-man studio into a small workshop. I even hired two young guys who shared my passion for woodworking as my assistants. I spent my days in work clothes covered in sawdust, communicating with wood. I was busy, I was tired, but for the first time in a long time, my heart was at peace. It felt like I had finally found my own path. Late one night, I was in the workshop applying the final coat of wax oil to a new piece. The warehouse's roll-up door suddenly rattled open. I turned around and saw a person I never expected to see again. It was Olivia. She was dressed like a CEO, in a trench coat and high heels. But her face lacked its usual calm authority. Instead, it was etched with a deep exhaustion and vulnerability. Her eyes were shadowed, as if she hadn't slept properly in days. She just stood there, looking at me, then at the messy workshop filled with the scent of wood and sweat. Her expensive heels seemed utterly out of place on the sawdust-covered floor. We looked at each other, neither of us speaking. Finally, she broke the silence. "I was just passing by," she said, offering a flimsy excuse. "I saw the light was on, so I thought I'd come see." I put down my tools and wiped my greasy, sawdust-covered hands on a rag. "What do you want?" My tone was neutral. I realized that when I faced her now, the intense anger and resentment were gone. All that remained was a quiet calm, like seeing an old friend. She walked in, her heels making a soft, crunching sound on the sawdust. She looked around at the half-finished furniture, at the tools hanging on the wall. Finally, her gaze settled on my hands that had become rough and calloused, marked with small cuts from my work. Her expression was complicated. There was surprise, a touch of heartache, and something else I couldn't quite decipher. She started, then stopped. "You've been doing this all this time?" "Yeah," I nodded. "It's good. Good." She seemed unable to comprehend it. Giving up a stable career, a comfortable life, to come to a place like this and work with scraps of wood. "You think this is good?" "Yes," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I'm happy here. Everything I make, people genuinely love. Every dollar I earn feels clean. I don't have to answer to anyone or deal with office politics." "Olivia, this feeling of being grounded. You might never understand it." My words seemed to prick her. She flinched slightly. Her lips moved as if to say something, but she held back. Instead, she took an invitation out of her Hermes bag and held it out to me. "Next week is the Apex Innovations annual gala. I hope you can come." Her voice was low, almost a plea. I didn't take it. "Why would I go?" I asked. "To attend as the CEO's ex-husband, to watch you receive everyone's praise and admiration." "Olivia, I'm done being your backdrop." "That's not it," she said, a sense of urgency in her voice. "Ethan, I want you to be there with me at my most important moment. Like before. Like before." Those words silenced both of us. It was true. In the past, every time I got a small promotion or a bonus, she was the first person I'd tell. She would cook a celebratory dinner, and at company events, she would proudly stand by my side as Ethan's wife. Now, our roles were completely reversed. I saw the vulnerability and the plea in her eyes, and deep down, my resolve softened. In the end, I went. Not because I was still in love with her, and not for the sake of vanity. I went because her last words, like before, had struck the softest chord in my heart. After 10 years of marriage, even if the love was gone, a certain connection remained. The gala was held at the city's most luxurious hotel. It was a grand affair, teeming with Chicago's elite. I stood in the crowd, wearing a rented tuxedo, feeling like an ugly duckling that had wandered into a flock of swans. Olivia was the undeniable star of the evening. She stood on stage in a stunning red gown, delivering a powerful, charismatic speech. She recounted how, under her leadership, Apex Innovations had gone from losing money to tripling its market value in a single year. The applause from the audience was thunderous, their eyes filled with awe and admiration. She had done it. She had become a true titan of industry. I watched her from a corner, a bittersweet feeling washing over me. I was happy for her, but I also felt the immense distance between our worlds widening even further. Halfway through the evening, a jarring note disrupted the celebration. A young man rushed the stage, snatched the microphone from Olivia's hand, and shouted, his voice cracking with emotion, "It's all a lie. All of it. You see the glamorous results, but you have no idea what our R&D department sacrificed to get here." The room descended into chaos. Security guards rushed the stage to drag the young man away. "Don't touch me," he yelled, struggling against them. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm asking you." Our Genesis project team worked until 3 a.m. every single day for 3 months. Not one day off. Last week, our lead programmer, Mr. Wong, collapsed from exhaustion. He had a stroke, and he's lying in the ICU right now. Have you even once gone to see him? The product we built earned this company billions. And what did you give us in return? A cold bonus check. What do you think we are? A bunch of coding machines. Today, I'm going to tell everyone the truth. You're a monster. Your success is built on the blood, sweat, and lives of your employees. The young man's words were a bombshell that detonated in the ballroom. Every reporter in the room, like sharks smelling blood, swarmed forward, their cameras flashing relentlessly at the stage. The color drained from Olivia's face. She stood frozen, trapped in the blinding strobes, looking for the first time utterly lost and panicked. Her prized, invincible business logic had crumbled in the face of a single word: life. Her company, her seemingly impenetrable corporate empire, was now facing an unprecedented and catastrophic public relations crisis. And the root of that crisis was the very thing we had once fought about: a lack of humanity. The gala ended in a chaotic and humiliating retreat. The next day, headlines screamed from every news outlet: Apex Innovations under fire for inhumane work culture after employee collapses. The company's stock price plummeted. Olivia, once a celebrated business icon, was now being vilified as a cold-blooded capitalist. For the next few days, she locked herself away in her vast, empty penthouse at the Elysian Tower, avoiding the office. I saw photos of her in the news, looking haggard and worn. After much hesitation, I finally called her. The phone rang for a long time before she picked up. "Hello." Her voice was a hoarse, exhausted whisper. I saw the news," I said. "Are you okay?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then I heard it, a low, suppressed sob. It was the first time in our 10 years of marriage I had ever heard her cry. She had always been the strong one, the rational one, the one who could handle anything. But in that moment, she was just a hurt and broken person in need of comfort. "Ethan," she choked out. Was I really wrong?" My heart ached. "You weren't wrong," I said softly. "You just wanted to win too badly. And in the process, you forgot that your employees are people, not machines. You can replace a broken machine. But once a person's heart turns cold, you can never wire it up again." What do I do now?" she asked, her voice as helpless as a lost child's. I paused for a moment, then said, "Do you remember? Back in the day when a colleague at the office was going through a tough time, or if someone got really sick, what would our department do?" She thought for a moment. "You guys would organize a collection, send people to visit, cover their work for them." "Right," I said. "None of those things helped the company's bottom line. In your eyes, they were probably meaningless, inefficient activities. But Olivia, it's exactly those useless things that give a company a soul. It's what makes employees feel like they're not just cogs in a cold machine, but part of a warm, caring family. A company that only talks about KPIs and not about people won't last long." My philosophy, the one she had once dismissed as sentimental and foolish, now seemed to be her only lifeline. I understand," she said from the other end. Her voice was still rough, but it held a new flicker of strength. The next day, a public letter, personally signed by Olivia, was posted on the Apex Innovations official website. In it, she offered no excuses. She simply expressed her sincerest apologies to Mr. Wong and his family. She announced that the company would cover all of his medical and rehabilitation costs. She announced the establishment of a $10 million employee care and assistance fund to help any employee facing hardship. She announced the immediate abolishment of all unreasonable overtime policies, promoting a new ethos of healthy work, happy life. Finally, at the end of the letter, she wrote, "A great company should not only pursue commercial success, but must also hold on to the warmth of its humanity. This is a lesson taught to me by the most important teacher in my life. Thank you." The letter completely turned the tide of public opinion. People no longer saw a cold-hearted queen, but a leader who was willing to be humble, to reflect, and to show compassion. The crisis at Apex was over, and I knew that the teacher she mentioned in the letter was me. A month later, my workshop received a very unusual commission. The request was simple: a plain, two-person workbench. The order was placed by Olivia's assistant. I didn't refuse. I spent a full week selecting the finest lumber and using the most traditional mortise and tenon techniques to craft the bench. On the day of delivery, I brought it myself to the top floor of the Apex Tower, to the CEO's office I had never set foot in. The office was vast and impressive, with a floor-to-ceiling window that offered a panoramic view of the entire city. Olivia was standing by that window. She was wearing a simple white sweater and slacks, no makeup, her long hair falling casually over her shoulders. She looked thinner, but her eyes held a new sense of peace and clarity I had never seen before. She was no longer the intimidating queen, nor the vulnerable woman on the phone. She was just, "Olivia, you're here," she said, offering a smile that felt like sunshine on a winter day. "What do you want it?" I asked, gesturing to the large workbench. "Right here is perfect," she said, pointing to the prime spot in front of the window. I moved the workbench into place. The sunlight bathed the warm wood, making it glow. "Thank you," she said softly, walking over to me. "For what?" "Thank you for not celebrating with me at my peak, but for being there to catch me at my lowest." She looked at me, her eyes glistening. "And thank you for making me understand that some things are more important than market value and profit margins." I looked at her and smiled. "So, about the final payment for this workbench, Mrs. Hayes, is it time to settle the bill?" She laughed, a genuine girlish laugh. "Of course." She opened a drawer and handed me a file. "Here's the payment." I took it and froze. It wasn't a check. It was a stock transfer agreement. She was transferring 10% of her personal shares in Helios Capital to me. "I don't need this," I said, pushing it back. "It's not for you," she said, shaking her head, her gaze serious. "This is the consulting fee paid by the future Helios Capital to its new lifetime corporate culture advisor." This time I didn't refuse, because I knew it was no longer charity. It was an offer made between equals, rooted in respect and recognition. I didn't leave that afternoon. The two of us sat side by side at that wooden workbench in her enormous office. Outside the window, the city buzzed with life. Inside, there was a quiet peace, bathed in warm sunlight. She turned to me suddenly. "Ethan, when you have some free time, could you also teach me how to make a small stool?" I turned and looked at her. She had taken off her heels and was standing barefoot on the cold floor, her face filled with a hopeful, nervous excitement, like a student waiting for a teacher's praise. I smiled. I walked over to her, picked up a small block of wood and a carving knife, and handed them to her. "Of course," I said, "but just so you know, my tuition is very expensive." On that afternoon, the sun was bright, and the smell of sawdust was sweet, and I knew that the story of our home was about to begin again in a completely new way.